Welcome to Unbound. You're here for conscious chats that go deeper than your Instagram feed, where we ditch the dogma but keep it real. So let's get unbound. Hi Unbound crew, I'm back with another solo episode, and today I wanted to drop in and talk to you a little bit about how you might be unconsciously designing your own suffering. We have this tendency to, when we've experienced disappointment in life, and I'm going to talk really about the relationship between hope and disappointment, and then what that tends to create in terms of the universal mechanics of everything that exists. When we consider those mechanics and we consider how we might be showing up or where we might be coming from, we might find that there is a little bit of a tendency to be designing our own suffering in a way that we might not be expecting. So it's an important thing to look at. And really, when we've had a certain amount of experience of disappointment, which, we've all had certain disappointments in life, and these often trace back to our earliest disappointments. Our earliest disappointments are those moments, particularly in childhood, where we came in with a natural inbuilt expectation to receive a certain amount of love, a certain amount of safety, a certain amount of comfort, a certain amount of presence, and we may not have experienced that quite to the degree that there was an inbuilt hope for. And again, this is all happening at a subconscious level, just the innate desire and expectation of a child. And our parents were doing the best they could with the tools and the knowledge and the state of consciousness that they had at the time. But there was certainly, going back in previous generations, in a lot of cases, there wasn't the capacity there or the understanding about what that might look like in terms of an ideal scenario for a child. So there can be these early disappointments of not experiencing being held or experiencing safety and comfort in certain scenarios. And again, this is very much a spectrum from hardly experiencing any of that at all, with a very chaotic environment, very stressed parents, a lot of lack of presence, right through to just simply some experiences that you had that were kind of pivotal, and you were having that experience of deep pain or deeply afraid of something that was going on in your life in your childhood, and it felt to you like no one was there for you, or the expectation wasn't met. So we can see how there is, when we're dealing with just human people, parents are human and they're not able to be there at every moment. And certainly the further we go back, the less knowledge there was about the importance for the emotional development, for the brain development of children and ultimately adults as they progress, of these early years of development, of these early years where we're absorbing so much in our environment, we're so much more sensitive and the brain is forming. So we can see how there are potentially quite a lot of opportunities for there to be a number of disappointments. So, and then, what happens is, one of the coping mechanisms that we might have developed, and it's quite common, is that we find, well, I'm being disappointed so often that what I'll do is I'll just lower my expectations. I'll stop hoping because I'm getting this experience of disappointment is very strong for me. And maybe that's because there wasn't also a very, strong, stable foundation that was being created in other areas which would offset that. Of course, there's going to be disappointments in life, and we want to be able to, roll with the punches. We want to be able to surrender into something that's not working out for us in that moment. But when we're a child, and you'll see this in young children, toddlers, when they don't get something that they want, the disappointment can be quite a heightened visceral experience, even in a stable, loving environment. So we can imagine if that environment wasn't so stable, wasn't, showing a lot of love in the ways that just the parents weren't capable of giving that in a way the child could fully receive it at the time, what the heightened experience of disappointment might feel like. And so it becomes this overwhelming experience that the child doesn't learn to, in a healthy way, process. And so one of the coping mechanisms that the child might develop is the sense of, well, I won't hope for anything. If I keep my expectations low, then I can't be disappointed. And so and this may be something that you recognize in yourself, that you either know that you've been doing, you regularly practice it consciously, or it's something that might be somewhat of a thread in your experience if you look back and you might start to, uncover a little bit more of that through listening to this episode, is that the coping mechanism of lowering expectations, not hoping for anything, we start to then sink. When we think about the energy of disappointment and the energy of kind of not hoping or dreaming for, those are higher hopes, dreams. Hope is a very high vibrational, high frequency emotion, experience, and it's really uplifting. If we don't have hope, what do we have? We're contracted. We're in a state of there's nothing really worth doing. It's all just going to be another long unfolding disappointment. Now, that might not be how you're thinking about things on the conscious level, but there may be some unconscious programming around that, which will have you not dare to hope for something that feels big or that feels outside of the realm of what you've seen around you, or something that's a little bit bigger than your current sphere of experience. And so we might then, settle for, and settling for, it's often a term that's used in relationships, settling for someone that doesn't maybe completely float your boat or doesn't have all the things that you're really hoping for. And of course, there's scenarios where it's not settling, it's just having, a set of sometimes our expectations around those things, they're placed in the wrong areas, and then we're not able to see when someone's really offering us the things that we actually need rather than the things that the mind tells us that we want. But settling also comes in a way of settling for a certain experience of life, a certain level of experience, which is just, well, this is as good as it's going to get, or it's not going to get any better than this, or, life has to be one big battle where I'm just battling it out and, toiling away, and there's a few disappointments, and, all I really have to look forward to is my holiday once a year, and my, maybe just my coffee in the morning is the only thing getting me through the day. So I've only got, a couple of peak experiences in life to look forward to, and I don't even really want to look forward to those, because what if they don't happen? So what I won't do is look forward to anything. I won't, hope and dream and imagine. And that space is a space where we open to greater possibilities than that which we're experiencing. And of course, this experience that we're having in this universe, in this body, the body being an expression of universal intelligence from that unified worldview, is that our own nature is a space of total possibility. The universe itself is a field of infinite creative potential and infinite energy. When we think about the mechanics of this universe, which we are a part of, which is a part of us, there are certain mechanics to it. If we look at it from a quantum physics, quantum mechanics perspective, then what we have is the underlying field of creative intelligence, of infinite energy, of creative potential. And that is the baseline of all form and phenomena. So the baseline of every single form, if we go deep within it, from right down to the nucleus, and then deeper than that into the quark and the leptoquark, and we get eventually to this unified field of energy, which is oscillating very, very quickly and appearing as matter. And one of the great discoveries which has been known for all time when it comes to the Vedic philosophy and Vedic understanding is that it is an expectation-driven universe. So it responds to frequency. When we think about an expectation, it's not a solid form, it's a frequency, it's an energy. So from a quantum physics, quantum mechanics perspective, that looks like creating a vacuum. This is the studies that they've done, creating a vacuum and then inserting a probe into that vacuum. So a vacuum means there's nothing there, there's no form or phenomena. The probe is inserted, and let's say we're inserting an electron probe. That electron probe is forming an expectation, because the probe is expecting to find an electron. And interestingly enough, out of the field of total possibility, total potential of no form or phenomena, no matter, appears an electron. And so this probe, an electron probe, is forming the expectation of a proton or an electron appearing. Now, this is coming out of a field of no form or phenomena, no matter, just a field of unbounded, unified energy. So when the probe is inserted, then the electron, if it's an electron probe, appears. If it's a proton probe, the proton appears out of essentially a field of energy. So what is that really telling us is that the expectation has to be there for form and phenomena to appear. So when we think about that, we zoom back out of that quite massive concept into daily life. What we have an underlying and perhaps largely unconscious expectation for is what we will create. So if our expectations have been set around disappointment and around being let down and around life being a challenge, life being a battle, we're starting to, that's quite deeply baked in because it's been there from very early stages and years of development in your life. It's been there for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, depending on where I meet you at this moment. And so that expectation is quite deeply baked in. And we might not realize to what extent the circuitry is running in our system. But if you find yourself having those thoughts around not day-to-day things, but perhaps there's a personal threshold for you where when things get big and it might be a desire around love or a dream around love, perhaps that's the area where you don't hope to dream around that because that just can't happen for you. That's what you really feel on the inside. You don't like to think that way. You try to structure different thinking over the top, but there is an underlying messaging and underlying circuitry around that, which is, this isn't going to happen for me. So I'm not going to hope for it. I'm going to think about it a lot because I'm aware that I don't have it. But I can't dare hope for it because what I'm really expecting at the baseline is what I experienced early in life, which is a certain amount of disappointment. Or perhaps it's not a love scenario for you. Perhaps you're in a relationship and you have a loving partner, but perhaps it is more about a field of potentiality around your own, what you create in the world, around your own career, around your own offering services, ideas, creativity, capability ultimately to create and bring forth something of value. Perhaps there is a lot of circuitry running around incapability. And when we have these kind of circuitries running, firstly, there is an underlying energy that then creates scenarios which we are also looking for. We're subconsciously looking to have our baseline experience reinforced. So our baseline experience is one of disappointment, or it's one of I'm not capable, or it's one of I'm not good enough, or all of the above, or a blend of of all of them. And so what we find is we're looking for the evidence that proves that right. So when something happens, we can look at it in lots of different ways, but our perception is driven by that underlying programming, that deeply embedded groove, that samskara, as we might call it in the Sanskrit, that impression that I'm going to be disappointed, that I'm going to be let down, that I'm not capable, that I'm not good enough. And so perhaps you don't get accepted for a job that you apply for. Instead of just taking that on the chin and thinking, okay, well, I expect to be in a wonderful role. I know I'm of value. I know I'm really skilled. I know I can create whatever I want. Then I'm not really going to think too much about that because I don't have this heightened impression around maybe I did really think I wanted that job, but I'm able to let it go knowing that I'm going to find something. Versus if someone has more of that circuitry around being incapable, not good enough, the moment that they aren't successful in that application, this whole line of thinking starts, which is the perception that, oh, what did I do wrong? They make themselves wrong in the process. I did something wrong. I should have done this. I should have done that. There might be areas of refinement, things that we can learn, but we don't need to make ourselves wrong in the process. And that can cause a lot of suffering. So again, coming back to what Unbound is all about, is unlocking higher levels of potential and also minimizing suffering in the process. And both are very much interlinked. So we don't need to be suffering through these kinds of experiences. We don't even need to be experiencing that much disappointment, passing wave, then on to the next thing and continuing to move forward with the aligned action. So what can happen when we find that we didn't get that job, and we've gone into the spiral of self-doubt and self-flagellation around how not good enough and all of the things, and I expected to be disappointed. I didn't really think I was going to get it, because for me to just walk in there and claim that and actually be successful, that isn't within my purview of expectation. My expectation is around disappointment, so I'm also almost expecting it. In fact, I am expecting it at the subconscious level. I'm expecting that to happen, and then I create it because I'm not able to show up in that moment in my best way. I'm not able to really put myself forward. I'm not able to rise into a match for that energy of, I'm ready to claim this, which is a certain level of confidence. It's a certain level of presence, a certain level of groundedness, a certain level of dynamism, of Shakti, of organizing power, as we would call it. You can feel the energetic shift. If I say I'm ready to claim this job and I know that I can do it, you feel the energy of that versus, I'm not really sure if I'm going to get it. Look at my body. I'm not really sure if I'm going to get it. I'm kind of nervous and I don't know if I can really, how I'll go in the interview. And what circuitry is running in the background there is something that is really valuable to look at and to start to see what is the early programming that is at the basis of this. Is it incapability? Is it not good enough? Is it fear or expectation of disappointment? Is it all of those things? And we can start to break them down one by one, because we will not be able to show up in the way that we need to show up in order to be a match for receiving. Is one thing that can happen. Another is we can have a clouded perception over what is simply an event. There is someone that's destined for that job. Who knows how many people applied? Let's say 50 people applied. Of those 50 people, only one person is going to get the job. So one person's destined for it. So you may have been able to show up in your best, show up as your best in that moment, and still it wasn't destined for you. And so we have to be able to let go that which is not destined for us. We have to realize this is not for me, and what is for me shall not go past me. And then we can minimize the suffering which is, this clouded perception of making yourself wrong, turning the circumstances as a reason to reinforce that underlying circuitry that you're already carrying. Because if you're not carrying not good enough, not capable, expecting disappointment, then you're simply going to move forward, and you're going to move forward much more rapidly and continue to show up and take inspired action, because you're moving from a place of inspiration. You're moving from a place of expectation. Your energy is that I expect to receive that role. I expect to have that experience. I expect to be able to earn that kind of salary. And so I'm simply going to keep moving in that direction until it comes to pass, because the expectation is strong enough, you're aligned with it in such a strong way that there is only a matter of time. And now we're down to universal timing, and we let go of attachment to timings or outcomes, knowing that in the larger scheme of things, nature, our own highest self, knows best how to organize. So if that role is just not destined for you, perhaps there's something better. Your attitude is going to be, well, something better must be coming. And you'll redirect your attention a lot faster. So we can see how this minimizes suffering. It minimizes time that's lost in self-flagellation, self-doubt, self-negation, the spiral that can happen, all the suffering that comes as a result of that. And we're far more quickly into moving forward again in aligned action, which also creates a greater opportunity of us lining up with that which we are now expecting to receive. Now, this question comes, well, can we still receive something even though we're carrying the disappointed or disappointment circuitry, the expectation? Yes, it can still happen, because many times people will say, oh, I just never thought in my wildest dreams that I'd experience this. I never thought this would happen for me, etc., etc. And that's quite a beautiful moment, which shows us that nature indeed does know best how to organize, nature being your highest self, the most expansive version of you. And also that things that are just so much greater than you can possibly imagine are available to you and are coming towards you. So why not align with that earlier? What that's going to do is those things that are coming to you anyway, they're already coming. But what is the space between you and that? You can create a certain amount of resistance. You can push them out further by missing the cues, by not being able to show up in the moment where there's many opportunities that are missed. And then, of course, the opportunities are infinite. They keep coming. So we land on the next one. But would we like to land on it earlier? Would we like to minimize the resistance? That's what we're really talking about when we talk about manifestation, and go back to episode 6, I believe it is, which is really a deep dive into the mechanics of manifestation, which I won't go into now. But if you're interested, definitely listen to that episode back after this one. But we can create resistance, and we can delay, and we can also, in that time, so let's say the journey between you and you finding the aligned partner and the love of your life is a 5-year process, is a 10-year process, is a 15, 20-year process. Maybe there's things that need to be experienced in that time for you to be a match for that type of relationship. Perhaps there are pathways that you need to go through to unlock various limitations that you have around the concept and experience of giving and receiving love, that you are still carrying a lot of circuitry around not good enough. And you can be in a relationship tomorrow with all of this circuitry. I really don't buy into that whole idea that you need to become some perfectly healed version of you in order to be in a relationship. But it's just about what might serve you more in the moment, in the progression towards that. So what might serve you more is to have some experiences where those parts of you that can still be healed, and the opportunity for healing, which is ultimately an opportunity for greater experience of love and unity, are being revealed to you, are being heightened to you, are being shown in the moment. What you are willing to accept, what you think you deserve, is showing up in certain partnerships that perhaps you went into with high hopes, and the hope and expectation of love and care and support and companionship and trust and all of those things. And then you discovered that they weren't there. And then what happened? Did you stay in it? Were there red flags at the beginning that you ignored? Did you allow yourself to be in that environment for a lot longer than perhaps you should have? Maybe only 6 months, 12 months, maybe a year, maybe 5 years, maybe 15, 20 years, whatever it might be. The earlier version of you was willing to accept that. And while that version of you is willing to accept that, then there isn't an expectation that is there to align with something greater. So it's only when we start to realize, and we wake up at some point in our life and we realize and we think about some area, and it could be love, it could be relationships, it could be our health, it could just be our general experience of life, and we think, I deserve better than this. You know that moment where you suddenly realize, oh, I've been accepting all of this and I just can't accept it anymore. What is that moment? It's a moment of realization. It's a moment of expansion, because in that moment, a bigger part of you has come online. There's been a part of you that's been willing to accept that for so long, for your whole life until that point, or however long that relationship went on. You've been willing to expect, willing to accept, willing to live in that environment, whatever it might be, accept that kind of treatment, accept that kind of behavior. And through that time, you weren't even thinking about, maybe the thoughts started, but you weren't willing to act on it. And so we didn't have enough of that inner drive, that inner expectation that's starting to arise. And when that inner expectation gets bigger, and comes online, that actually I deserve more than this, we start to, in that moment, expect more. And then we start to take the aligned action, and the aligned action we might have been avoiding for quite a long time because we were out of alignment with that higher vision, that higher version of self. And so we didn't have the difficult conversation. We didn't hold someone accountable. We didn't say no. We didn't leave. We didn't ask the appropriate questions at the moment that we spotted the red flags. We can ignore things for a really amazing amount of time sometimes. And so perhaps you ignored all of those things for a while. And then there comes this moment where you're unwilling to ignore them anymore. Or it gets bad enough. It wasn't bad enough before, and it feels like this experience of the walls closing in. And so when the walls close in, that's one of nature's ways of shifting you out of something that's really been out of alignment for a long time. There are smoother ways to move out of things, or to not get so far out of alignment, to not create and design your own suffering in that way, to stay within something that's not relevant for you, whether it's toxic work environment or a relationship that's causing a lot of harm. If a relationship is causing a lot of stress, a lot of harm to your mental, emotional, physical well-being, starts to manifest in physical symptoms where you are feeling anxious within the relationship, anxious about a partner's response or behavior, or starting to walk on eggshells, all of those things, then it's causing harm. So it's immediately out of alignment. Anything that causes harm to you, to your system, you're not feeling the best, most supported, loved version of yourself, because this is ultimately a universe that is made of love. What is that underlying field of energy? It's a field of an ocean of love. So we're not in alignment fully with that when we're willing to accept harm. And those things are harmful. And it doesn't mean that the relationship needs to end, but that dynamic of whatever is causing that level of harm needs to end. And that comes through communication, through having the conversations, through standing for yourself and saying, I'm willing to accept this dynamic, this behavior, this scenario. So it's up to you whether you're willing and able to change that. And if you're not, then I'm always willing to back myself and to stand for myself, and I'm not willing to stay in anything for any reason, whether it be money, whether it be I feel I need another person, whether I feel like I need to get love from another person. There is nothing that's going to have me stay in a scenario that is damaging to myself. And so I'm not going to buy into those fears and those ideas that this is the only place that I can get that, and that I can't be okay and on my own, and that things won't be okay. And so that is the shift that we have to make, where we value our own well-being more than that thing that we think we're getting from the scenario. That maybe I can only get money here, or there won't be another job, there won't be another relationship. Or again, all of these are very closed, contracted views of things. Of course there can be another relationship, of course there can be another job, of course there's other sources of money, but we have to open up to that possibility. And sometimes these circuitries that might be running, the unconscious programming about what we deserve, about what we expect, about what we can hope for, is limiting us from having the clarity of perception to see that there indeed is something, and of course there'll be something else for us, and perhaps that's just a healthy, happy experience on our own for a while, or perhaps it's a period of time where we're looking for a job but we're healing from all of the stress and tension and burnout that we've been experiencing in that role. If you're loving Unbound and would like to tap in a little deeper, my membership space Pocket Guru is your ideal next step. It's super accessible, daily wisdom notes dropping into your pocket via WhatsApp Monday to Friday, but just 15 to 20 minutes of audio. Like a mini pod, but more intimate. Hear how this wisdom really comes to life in the context of real life niggles. Ask your questions anonymously, listen on the go, and join a vibrant community of over 200 members. I'd love to see you inside via the link in the show notes or via my Instagram bio @GVMeditation. So we have this moment where we start to feel, I deserve better than this. And then we start to take the action all of a sudden. So we've had this expansion. We've come into a more evolved version of us where we feel we deserve and then can act on. Because before we weren't taking the action. We might have been thinking about it, but we're stuck in the fear and indecision. We haven't fully elevated into that state, which is knowing, which is certainty, which has a certain level of dynamism to it, and that Shakti, that organizing power, the dynamic action that comes with it, to speak up, to say no, to step out, to leave, whatever it might be. And of course, if we don't leave, if we stay there, we will not be able to discover whether there is something that aligns with our truest vision. And so this is where we come back to this idea of having the capacity to hope and dream and imagine something bigger. Universe is already doing that for you, but you can align with it faster. And which means that you're going to spend more time in the energy of that when you're able to hope and dream and not have it be a source of disappointment every time. Like say you're, dreaming of love and you're dating and, your ideal person or ideal experience that you would have, because ultimately you have so many opportunities to relate within yourself, with life. There's so much joy, so much to be experienced, whether you're in partnership or not. And I'm very much of the view that it doesn't require partnership to be in a happy, joyful, meaningful, purposeful life. But if you're choosing that and there is a desire there to experience life with another, to experience that expression of you that can come out in an intimate relationship, and you're dating, and there's going to be a myriad of experiences that we have in the dating pool. You're going to meet a lot of people that you don't feel attracted to. You're going to meet people that show up in ways that are entirely unattractive and are entirely not in alignment with your vision. But because you're able to stay, when you're able to stay in that energy of certainty that that vision is worthy of you and that you're going to align with it at a certain point of time, when you can allow yourself to feel the energy of hope and the energy of the experience of what it might be to be in that relationship. And again, apply this to anything else that you're thinking of. It might be a business that you want to create. It might be an experience of life that you want to be having, a certain level of freedom or travel or entrepreneurship, whatever it might be. When you're able to stay in the energy of what that feels like, because what you're really looking for is not the person, and it's not the type of lifestyle. It is the feeling that that's going to give you. And so when you're able to feel that and allow yourself to feel it, because when we have that circuitry that's cutting us off from that disappointment, I don't want to feel it because I probably will never be able to, it will never happen for me, be too hard, etc., etc. We're cutting ourselves off from being in the energy of that. When we're in the energy of that, that is going to be the fastest track to that coming, because it's just going to become this tidal wave of expectation that nature can no longer ignore, that nature can no longer ignore, and that will simply deposit that experience onto your doorstep, and you'll have to show up for it as well. There will be certain actions required of you. Might be letting go of the timeline. It might be stepping out of a corporate job and the safety of that in order to move in that direction, because when you're spending time marinating in that energy, then you're going to create a strong expectation around it. It's very comfortable for you. It's a aligned space, and you're naturally going to have the energy, dynamism, confidence, strength to move towards it and take what might be quite bold actions in order to go after that which you want to really receive and feel that you're worthy of. So when we're sitting in the energy or cutting that off, we might get moments of it. You might get a glimpse of it and then you cut it off. You feel it, but then you have a whole lot of thoughts that immediately come out of it. Or you're holding that energy briefly and then you have one experience, one bad date, one micro relationship that doesn't work out, or that you get treated not well in, which is a reflection of them, not a reflection of you. What you do with that is a reflection of you. Do you stay in it? Do you now expect that that's going to happen to you? Have you made it about you? No, push all of that out. You're moving towards your highest vision, and you're simply being shown, gratefully, at an early stage, that this person is not in alignment with that this is actually not what you're showing up for. And so nature's showing you all the time. Are you seeing the signals there? Are you looking for them? Are you willing to be aware that this, have you just latched onto the first person that came along, the first job that came along? Or are you holding the higher vision and holding and trusting and knowing that you're going to align with that? And so anything that is not a match for that, you're willing to let go of. With that deep sense of knowing that when I can stay aligned with that vision, when I can continue to hold it and not get stuck wasting time in these false finish lines. The false finish line is is a trap, which is the relationship that, isn't the one that you're really hoping for, that doesn't have that level of love that you really know that you deserve, that isn't allowing you to be your best self. And so, or the work environment that you feel you just need to be in there because you've got to save money, you've got to be in this, and you're not willing to put yourself out there and explore what the potential might be for something that's truly going to inspire you, fill you with passion, where it won't be a hard slog. The moment you start to step out of these assumptions that everything has to be a slog and it all has to be this and that, and it can only be like this in this very small, contracted vision of things. When we step out of that, there's a lot more possibility. And now we're starting to align with that highest version of ourselves, which is a field of total possibility. It's simply waiting for your expectation to shift around what you're expecting and therefore are capable of creating, receiving, showing up for. So we're going to have to show up for that vision as well, which might mean and will often involve saying no to something that is not that. And then we're going to have to be able to ride the wave in between where we may not be at the finish line yet. So we've said no to the false finish line, and then there is a space of time, and in that gap, that's when people can drop into, oh, well, it hasn't shown up yet, so therefore it's not coming. I've just been dating all these people and none of them have been, anything. I'm looking for a signal that it can happen for me. If you're looking for a signal that it can happen for you, then you haven't fully aligned with the higher vision that it's already coming, that you already are in alignment with it. And in fact, you're already feeling the experience of it. So you're not really in a rush to get it because you already feel like it's here. So of course it's going to then eventually come into physical form. So energy first. If you're looking for it to show up, like maybe you need signs that people are interested in you, maybe you need to, see that there's worthy people out there. You don't need to see any of that. You just need to stay in the space and energy of your highest vision and say no to anything that's not that. And enough times of that, nature's going to say, oh, well, none of these are landing. Then they are obviously ready for something bigger. And I also think the bigger that we're dreaming, the bigger that we're hoping, the more that's going to be required of us. So a small vision, I'm really just desiring a delicious cacao, matcha, chai, coffee at the cafe in the sun, we can fulfill that quite easily, right? It doesn't take much of us. So I'll just stop working now and drive down there. But a bigger vision is always going to involve more of us, which means that there's a certain amount of becoming in the process. And the becoming is the shedding of everything that's not that. And so it is a very powerful, enriching, and rewarding process. And when you can be at one with that process, not see the process as some proof that it's not coming, not see that as the end point, not see that as the way that your life is going to continue to unfold, but rather this beautiful opportunity for healing, expansion, growth, progression, a deeper sense of connection with your true self, because of course anything you shed is not really your true self. All of it is simply ideas that you've absorbed at a certain point of time, which are not rooted in the deeper truth of things and not rooted in or connected to your deeper self. So that process in and of itself is the way. It is the pathway. It is just as valuable as whatever the end destination of that might be. You will need to show up for the process of letting go, the process of reflecting upon yourself, the process of healing, whatever that might look like for you. And absolutely, I recommend getting support with that. Get a mentor that can accelerate you. Get a practice that can give you the level of awareness that is going to support you in that process. The level of awareness that's expanded beyond, which is why I always recommend meditation. As you know, I teach that. I teach Vedic meditation, which expands your awareness. So why, when people start meditating, do they suddenly feel more hopeful, even though nothing in their circumstances has shifted? Is because they're starting to align with and have a direct visceral experience of the more expanded part of them, which is the field of total possibility, total potentiality. So from that perspective, the larger perspective, of course there's hope. Of course there's still a chance for you to experience all the things that you're desiring. Of course you have it in you. It's just simply of course. And so the noise of the fear, the stress of the small self starts to become less and less, which allows us to take more aligned action. So these things can be very supportive, and I would go so far to say as essential if you're wanting to walk this path. Therapy, whatever it might be, that is needed for you to do the healing that is showing up for you now, if that's what's coming up in your experience in this moment, whatever is showing up in this moment is the way, is your aligned pathway. You might think, well, I just want to be in that role. I just want to be doing that. I just want to be having that experience. I just want to be in that relationship. But that is not coming until you move through whatever is nature is showing you in this moment. Is the need of the time is actually this, is to heal this. And the person that you're aligning with, the job that you're aligning with, is also not ready. So the two of you are going to converge at the relevant moment. And they may be going through their own process, and hopefully they are, because if they're going to be a match for you, the more expanded, grounded, self-assured, self-trusting version of you, the aware version of you that knows who you are, what you want, and what you deserve, then they also have to be that. So they're going to have to be going through their own pathway. Or they need to be an organization that's just not ready to, they're not hiring at the moment, or someone's in the very role that you're going to have. And so you're preparing yourself in a certain way so that you're going to be the natural candidate for that role. So we can see how the timing is not within our control, and it also doesn't need to be. We just let go and let that larger part of ourselves organize, and we only have to show up for what is the need of the time in the moment, but also hold that higher vision. The energy of hope and disappointment are quite different, and they produce different actions in us. Hope it's bright, it's open. It means that we'll naturally take the action, we'll naturally submit an application, we'll naturally ask that person out, we'll assume that person is interested until we hear otherwise. Disappointment or expectation around not good enough, those kind of underlying programs are going to have us not even go for it, not try at all, make the initial assessment, oh, that person wouldn't be interested in me. And sometimes we'll be proved otherwise, and that is nature, also showing up for us and showing us where, if that happens, then there's something in it for us to gain there, which is just to realize, oh, that was what I was thinking. I really actually need to address that, because it's not just about me being with this person or being in relationship. It's actually about me healing and expanding out of some of these patterns, because I won't be able to hold that relationship. I won't be able to stay in it because the circuitry is going to come up again. Oh no, maybe there's someone who's more intelligent, more good looking, more amazing than me. And as soon as you perceive someone like that to be in the sphere of influence of this partner, you're going to start to think that they're going to be more interested in them. And you'll self-sabotage. This is how the self-sabotage can come in, is you'll start to self-sabotage that relationship as a result of that, because you don't really think you're worthy of it ultimately. That is the flip side. If someone is very, the type of person that you really want to be with, and it matches that vision that you have, but you're not yet a match for it, you don't really believe it, you're not really aligning with the energy of it, then it might show up, it might play out that way. So, or we'll miss opportunities. They will be presented in front of us and we just won't even realize that it's there, because the perception, the shades are down of expecting disappointment. So this kind of wonderful opportunity that might be dancing around you, you can't even see it. It's like the curtains are drawn and the sun is shining outside, but you haven't opened the curtain, so all you can see is what's in front of you: dusty floor, motes of dust, floating in front of you, darkness. You just simply have to open the curtains, which is letting go of and seeing past this kind of circuitry. And it can shift with just a decision. Firstly, awareness. Ask yourself, to what extent have I stopped hoping and dreaming? And if I were to take away all of the limitations that I've placed on myself, which are, I'm not capable of this, I'm not deserving of this, I couldn't possibly be or have this kind of experience. If I took all of those limitations away, then what might I hope for? What do I really want? Quite often we're not even willing to admit to ourselves what we really want, because so much fear and resistance comes up around what it would take of us to align with that, what conversations might need to be had, what might need to be let go of, what aligned actions we would have to take. So it's not even really that we can't have the vision, is that we're not willing to show up for it. We're not willing to do the work, do the action, have the conversation, put ourselves out there in order to get closer to and move in the direction of it. So there's a bit to think about there, but I really wanted to bring this up today because it's something that's been coming up in a few of my mentorship spaces, and it's something that I like to really rigorously check in with on myself around where my expectations are around a lot of things, around what I think I deserve, can experience, can do, and certainly taking those steps towards each thing which pushes you to a greater level of expansion, a greater level of capability, a greater level of skill that demands more of you is a very supportive way of aligning with those higher visions. Because if we don't take that first step and stretch ourselves a little bit, if we just stay stuck in the waiting, then we're never really going to get the evidence that I can do this. I can break through this barrier. Yes, it's hard at times. Yes, there's challenge. Yes, I feel uncomfortable in that in-between space where I'm trying something new and I'm not really comfortable with it. But the more times you go through that, then the more these barriers, these limitations start to just fade away because they don't have any basis in reality anymore. But if we're in the waiting room, sitting back, waiting, thinking about it, not really doing anything, then they get bigger and bigger and bigger and actually gain in power and energy and start to become this prison of your own making. So I would like for all of you to step out of all of your prisons, whatever they look like and whatever their basis, and we just move through them one by one. See what's there, start to just get a little bit curious around where did it come from, what was an idea that we've just absorbed, to what extent is that idea really true, and then if it wasn't there, in the absence of that, what might we be capable of, what might we truly desire, what actions might we take, what might we really dream of. And when we start to ask that question, we open possibility, the energy rises up, and we start to think of potentials that are outside of what we're experiencing right now. This moment is a brand new moment, and this has never been experienced before, which means that there's only possibility and potential moment by moment by moment. But what are you willing to show up for? What are you willing to take actions for or towards? What are you willing to see that you can't see right now? And I really want you to lift the veil on that and create and experience the life that you deserve to be living and experiencing and moving towards, and all of the becoming and all the beautiful process along the way. So I hope that's brought a little bit of clarity on this topic. I'd love to hear from you. Please share your stories. Please reach out and let us know how this is landing, and also what you'd love to hear more from Unbound. See you next time. Thanks for getting unbound with us today. We'd so appreciate it if you could take a moment to leave us a review and to share this episode with anyone who you think could benefit. It helps us to keep these conscious conversations flowing. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. See you next week.